Hi, this is Jim Gibson. Thank you for joining me today on my channel. I very much appreciate it. And today we're going to be talking to a very interesting young man who used to work for me a decade ago or so. I don't know, 5-6 years ago maybe, I don't know. But I've kept in touch with him and saw what he was doing and what his business was. He started a business from scratch and now it's well over $1 million. Now, maybe you're not interested in business. Maybe you're not interested in starting a business. And if you're not, I understand. But he talks about his business that can help IT people in the future. So even if you're not an installer, his business can benefit you. Even if you are an installer or an MSP, his business can assist you. So you want to hear this. You want to hear his story because it's really interesting, and he's a great guy. He's done a really good job. He's worked hard. And again, he's seeing success of well over $1 million. And he talks about strategy, business strategy, things like that. Now, before we start, I have this real quick question for you, or request. I need subscribers. So please subscribe to the website. Most people who make comments, by the way, are not subscribers. I'd really appreciate it if you could subscribe. Also, at the same time, please hit the like button and notify other people about this video if this is of interest to you. And again, I think you're going to find it interesting. Even if you're not going to start a business, you'll find it interesting in how he did it. And even if you are going to start a business, then you should hear the way he did it and what he's thinking through. Now, at the end, we're going to be talking about 2 books. We're going to be talking about the Millionaire Fastlane, and we're also going to be talking about the E-Myth and how he used those 2 books to start his business. So thank you for coming to the website today, to the channel today. I really appreciate it. And listen to what Riley Chase has to say about his business and how his experience can help you.
Hi, this is Jim Gibson at cablesupply.com. Thank you for joining me today. Very much appreciate it. And today I have a very special guest that I've known for many years. Back when he worked for me, back when he was a teenager, and a very impressive young man that, man, I tell you, he learned Cisco, CCNA, faster than I've known anybody to learn it. And he was always fantastic with software, and we go back many years. Have not really, we talked off and on over the years, and that was fantastic. But Riley Chase now owns his own company, Hostify. And Riley, I know we've talked before about your company, but why don't you just give a quick brief of your company, and then we'll go into business and why start a business, things like that.
Sure. Yeah. So we provide a service for people who use Ubiquiti products for their network equipment. They can connect all the devices to one cloud server. Our team provides like the updates, backups, SSL installation, renewal, all kind of the boring stuff, and also support. So for our customers out there, we have over 2,000 customers, and they've connected hundreds of thousands of these network devices to our service. And we have a support team that's very skilled and specialized in Ubiquiti products. So we're able to provide like phone, email, live chat support anytime they need help with stuff. So yeah, that's what Hostify does.
Well, I know that if I was starting a cabling company, or if I was cabling right now, I would definitely use your service, because why would I want to do this myself? I got to have an employee do it, or I have to learn it myself. I got to set up my server. You guys take care of security patches. Yeah, you're there to help when I get stumped, and there's just no support from Ubiquiti on these things.
That's right.
So you get a chance to do this, and support me, so I can just concentrate on sales. Just
exactly.
Get the Ubiquiti installed in the ceiling, and then I call you.
Yep.
Now, there's a little more involved than that, but
right.
I'm a cabler, I don't want to learn a whole, I don't want to become a Cisco certified person and take care of cybersecurity and everything else. So you got a fantastic business. One price, right, per month?
That's right. Yeah, it's $99 a month. You can connect up to 250 devices for $99 a month. Prices might change. We also have annual plans. We can get a discount, but it's pretty simple. Yeah, pretty simple service.
And it's your server. I don't have to
Yeah, that's right.
provide electricity. I don't have to protect it. I don't have to air condition it in the summer. And I don't have to secure it. So someone breaks in and steals it, that would be a problem. And I don't have to worry about it. 24/7, your server takes care of Ubiquity and all the issues and cybersecurity and software upgrades and stuff like that.
That's right.
One of the things I wanted to talk to you about is what caused you to go into business?
I don't know. I feel like I've always wanted to have my own business. I'm not sure exactly when it started. I know when I worked for you, actually, it was someone who inspired me because I got to kind of firsthand get to know you and your story, and I just found it really interesting. You had this is in 2012. You had IT service business before you sold it, Nova Voice and Data Systems, where I worked as a Cisco network engineer. But you also had cable supplies. You had an e-commerce store that you were running out of the warehouse in the back, and then you also had a YouTube channel where cable supplies YouTube channel and other YouTube channels where I wouldn't say you were famous, but I mean you had quite a following, tens of thousands of people, and so I thought that was really interesting. And I think as a young kid trying to figure out what I wanted to do, I liked technology, and I thought it was interesting, and I wanted to make more money. And I feel like I guess from a young age I kind of realized that like there's a ceiling to how much you can make, no matter how skilled you are. There's only so much money you can make, and it's probably less than 200,000 a year, or like maybe 200 something would be like the upper limit, maybe, I don't know. But I always felt like if there's a ceiling, I should play a different game that doesn't have that ceiling. I don't know. I just always thought that since I was, a young age, I guess.
Now you're talking about the limit to 250,000. It's basically the limit for an employee, right? You're not talking about a business owner.
No, I'm just talking about like if you're a skilled worker, like as a Cisco network engineer, you could probably make 100,000, maybe 150,000 a year. And then maybe if you're like an executive of a company, you can make like 200,000 or something. But like as a business owner, there's no limit to how much money you could make in a year. And why spend an entire career slowly working your way up to 100 or 200,000 a year when you could, make more money? I don't know. That's kind of the line of thought, I guess.
So you're, a lot of people ask the question, are entrepreneurs learned or are they born? Is this something you can learn, or is it something that you're born with?
I think you can learn it for sure. And I think, yeah, definitely you can learn it. I don't think people are born entrepreneurs. Even if you start at a young age, you still have to learn it. And a lot of people don't decide to start a business until they're a lot older. And I think there's also like that stereotype that young people are more successful or they start businesses, like especially with tech. Like there's kind of the stereotype that like a young college kid starts business, but in reality the statistics say that someone in their 40s is more likely to be successful in business than someone in their 20s, and it just has to do with experience. And so that's kind of why I think you learn it. But there are definitely attributes of like personality type or something probably that you get drawn to it. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that answer. I kind of, some people say, well, it's something you can learn, but I think you have to have it to start with. You have to have that desire, like you said. I hated that ceiling. Someone told me, this is the best you're ever going to do. I remember working for an organization, and they said that to me, this is the best you'll ever do. And I decided that day I'm quitting.
Yeah.
And, so if this is the best I'll ever do, then it's time to move on. And sometimes as an employee, that actually gives you a raise. You go into another company, you get a raise instantly, But
Yeah.
for me, I remember being in elementary school, and there was in Philly, and there was a creek there in Philly, and went through it as a kid, and as we're looking at it, there was a bunch of tadpoles, and all my buddies, they got one or two tadpoles, took them home in a cup. I went home and got my mom's nylons and made it into a net, that using a metal hanger, I turned it in a circle and put the net on it and scooped these suckers up and stuck them in a big jar. And I went to school next day, and at lunch, to buy lunch was 35 cents back then. You get a lunch for 35 cents in school. So I took my tadpoles and I priced them at 35 cents each. And the boys came in the bathroom and I said, "Hey, I'm selling tadpoles. You want one?" And I collected 35 cents and gave them a tadpole. They had to go get a cup and and take it home and everything else. And I did that for a little less than a week. And I used to joke that I made more money than my dad did working full time for the city of Philadelphia. My pockets were completely full every day. It was hard to walk home. I had a little metal lunchbox completely full of coins and each day. And finally, the principal found out what I was doing, and he stopped me from doing that. But I made hundreds and hundreds of dollars as an elementary school kid, and thought, this is great. My parents would say, "Well, you got your salary of $1, your weekly allowance of $1, but you got to take out the trash." I thought that week, I could pay someone else to take out the trash.
Yeah. That's
So
great.
I got the bug at that point, and I did many other small businesses, just always looking for an opportunity to start a business. And
Yeah.
I learned a lot along the way, even as a kid, and realized that, hey, I'm probably an entrepreneur. But, Nova Voice and Data was 28 years. It was
Yeah.
always in the black, always paid my bills, and always paid my vendors. That's a key, man. Pay your vendors ahead of time. Don't wait.
Yeah, I learned a lot working at Nova, and I think I was inspired by your story too, because you told me about how you started it. You already had a family, I think, at the time, and you just were doing cabling projects on the side, and so there's only been a lot of times I worked for bigger companies. I didn't work for that many companies, but there was only a few times I got to work with the owner of the company like you in a direct way and learn from someone like that. Because when you work for a bigger company, you're just kind of that. You're feeling this one little part of the business. You don't really see how the rest of the business works, like how it got started or how sales works or the different areas of the business. So I got to learn a lot about working with your son, Matt. He was always really good with customers and teach me more about the sales side. Like, hey, you got to talk to him. Like, I was very shy, I would never really talk to anybody. And so I'm a little bit more extroverted now, but he would tell me, hey, you got to talk to the customer. You got to get to know them. What are their interests, and make small talk with them. So he would always teach me. He was always giving stuff like that, and learn from Patrick. And I just really liked working with the guys there. But I think working at a small business, you get to learn the different areas and everything. So
yeah,
that's
and
always interesting.
If you're thinking of going in business and work for someone in that business, you may find out that you don't really like that thing. That you have your strengths and you have your weaknesses. And I always think they're God-given strengths and you have God-given weaknesses. So it points you in a direction you should go. And for me, I was always uncomfortable working for someone else. I always felt like I should work for myself. And one of the things my wife challenged me early on was when you talk about being a little bit of shy or something like that, we'd go to an event where there was a lot of professionals, things like that, and she would say, "I challenge you to get a business card from every single person in this room." And so I would go out and I would hand everyone my business card, and I would get a business card from them and get to know their name, try to remember their name, say it over and over and over again, and things like that. And a lot of business at Nova came that way, by going to events and learning people's names. And it was a challenge. It was not comfortable, but it was a challenge, and I learned from it. And I like business, but I've also had other businesses that didn't work out before this. So a lot of people, a lot of the employees would see this successful business and they would say, "Well, you send me out and I do all the work and you get all the benefits." Well, they have forgotten about the startup. They forgot about the fact that I'm the legal responsible, and if you accidentally injure someone, they sue me, not you, type of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm the one responsible for the mortgage or the rent, things like that. And they forget all that. And now you've had other businesses, haven't you, before this?
Yeah, so I mean, the main business I had before this was Lachlan Networks, and it was an IT service business where I did cabling, websites, phone systems. I really did a little bit of everything, and so yeah, that did that starting in 2014 until I mean, technically, it's still the legal entity that owns Hostify. So, but I stopped doing project work in 2018 or so. So,
Well, I owned before Nova. I owned a remanufacturing company, and we remanufactured alternators and starters and things like that in Philadelphia. And I had a partner, and I learned one big lesson. Every time I start something, I learn a lesson, and that big
oh yeah,
lesson was do not have a partner, because the harder I worked, the less he worked. And I don't think I don't think he was completely ethical, and yet I was going to be held responsible with the IRS, and money would
yeah,
disappear and things like that. And you learn a lot in the business when you're doing business to business. You see other business structures and how people work at them, and you learn that there's certain ways to do it and certain ways not. I'm always learning, constantly learning in business. But there's two books that you and I read, and I was discussing that with you on the phone about a month ago or 2 months ago.
yeah,
And one was The Fastlane.
yeah, yeah. So
Millionaires Fastlane.
the Millionaire Fastlane. Yeah, this was a book that was really influential, and the entire reason actually that I started Hostify and kind of diverged paths from Lachlan Networks, which I was working on as an IT service provider, and my next step was like trying to figure out recurring revenue and stuff. And then I read that book and decided I should start a software as a service business. Hostify was the first idea that I had, or one of my ideas that I had, and so that's how I got started there. But the whole premise of the book is kind of like thinking more about the business model and not just kind of blindly going into a business because it's what you know or what or like a business type you're familiar with, like a service business, very simple. But really thinking about how can I scale this. And so, yeah, that's what kind of got me started. As in the book, he talked about, a product business where you can create something once, sell it over and over. And so that's really something that I thought a lot about. And in the book, actually, he talked about software as a service being the best business model in the world because you have the element of recurring revenue and high margin, where unlike a physical product where you have this cost of producing it and shipping it and all that, with software, you create it once and you can ship it over and over the internet with virtually no cost. So I just found that really interesting. And so then I started Googling, like literally, like, how do I start a software as a service business? And just step one, you got to create a website. You got to have something someone can buy a subscription. Once they buy a subscription, it needs to go do this thing. And so, yeah, I was just kind of figuring out piece by piece. And there was another blog post that helped me come up with ideas and stuff like that. So, but yeah, that book was really influential for me. I'm not sure when you read it or what are your thoughts on it?
Well, I've read it actually multiple times. It has the wackiest name though, Millionaire Fastlane.
It sounds really cheesy, but it's a great book. Yeah.
But I saw enough of his YouTube videos that he intrigued me to read the book. And
yeah.
And of course, a lot of things he said I already knew, being in business for all these years, but it's reinforcement for me. It was like, yeah, this guy knows what he's talking about. This is really a fantastic book. And, he has that thing, sense. Do you remember the acronym? What does it stand for?
Yeah, it's control. I think it's control, entry, need, time, scale.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to walk through all those, but those are really good.
Yeah, let's walk through them. Let's talk about it.
So control, I actually forget what do you think the control one was? You have to control, like, you don't want to be an affiliate.
Control is what I violated with Nova Voice and Data Systems. I had one major vendor, and that was Toshiba.
There you go. That's control. That's
so
right.
I had one.
You're dependent on them.
And they controlled me. And when they decided, now remember, I was the largest Toshiba dealer in the country. So I sold more Toshibas than anyone else throughout the United States. And I sold to the big companies, Petco, AmeriQuest Mortgage, and everything else. So, and they would come to me for service and for add moves and changes, things like that. So that's really where Nova made the money. It was not local installs and stuff like that. And it was number two of business telephone systems, 15, 20 years ago. and they decided they were going to exit the market, and they gave us like a month. At the end of the month, we're going to exit the market. Well, so I violated that sense thing, the control, because they controlled the product. I did not. So when that was a majority of my business was national accounts with Toshiba. So I'm no longer in business. Basically, I don't have a product anymore.
I think another example he used in the book was being an affiliate marketer. So you build up a following and you're promoting this affiliate marketing thing and you're starting to make a ton of money off it. And then they change the terms, or they stop, they go out of business, or something out of it. You don't have control of the, particularly the terms, I guess. Like as an affiliate marketer, you're getting a percentage and they can change that on you. And so, control is about having ownership of the product, kind of end to end, in a more end to end way, where someone can't change one thing and it affects your whole business. But it's a tough one.
Yeah, that was a tough one when they said, we're no longer going to supply you with telephones because we're going out of business at the end of the month. This is not profitable enough for us.
Completely out of your control, and you were very dependent on them in that way. Yeah. Which I know every business has its risks, and I don't think there's anything wrong. I don't think you should have been, knowing that now, I don't think you should have been like, oh, I shouldn't do that business. Like that was a great business and it ended, it was out of your control. I don't think every business can hit every one of these, but these are really good things to keep in mind. Control, entry was the next one. So on the CENTS. So entry, this is a great one. So this is like people, you always see like, oh, so-and-so is a business owner now, but like, they're just like, what are these, multi-level marketing, where you bought something and now you're a business owner? Like that's entry. So like anyone can get into that. There's no cost to entry. Maybe the cost is buying the multi-level marketing package to do the demos or sell or whatever. But when the entry is so easy that anyone could just start it, then it's really not going to be a good business if anyone can do it with very little money or expertise. I think, did I nail that one?
You nailed it, man. That's it. Barrier. What is the barrier to entry? And
and some businesses are really high to barrier to entry. So it's like service businesses on the lower end, anyone can start a service business. I don't know. Yeah. Some businesses, you have to buy a lot of equipment, it can be really expensive.
The expertise,
the
investment in the expertise. Yeah, it's a barrier. What is the level of entry that you need to commit to start a business and to be successful? It's also at that point risk. You put all this money, all this time, and everything else into something, and then it may not. It may be a big barrier for someone else to be your competitor. Right. Such a big barrier for you that you can't start the company. Next one.
Yeah. So that one's entry. And then we have need. So I think that one is, and I haven't read this book in like 4 years. So I'm trying to remember here, but need seems pretty obvious. Like it needs to be something a customer, is actively looking for a solution for, not something that you've created an idea and now you're looking for a problem to solve with it. It has to be something that like is a real problem. People are already paying money for it. And I think that was one that I learned, is something that people are already paying money for is a good metric. If they're not already paying money for it, then I don't know. It's a tough one if they actually need it or not. If you can convince them to start paying money for something that they don't already need, that they're already paying money for it. What are your thoughts on that one?
Well, my thought is that, I remember the quote from Henry Ford that said, customers, if I listen to customers, they just want a faster horse.
Yeah.
Rather than the car. But at the same time, there is a big difference.
True.
And he pretty much ran the market at that point. Remember, he said, you can have any color car you want as long as it's black. Then he learned, because Chevy came in and really took him to task on that. I was watching a seminar put on by Salone School of Business, and it was because I was bored. Because generally, I think that entrepreneurs know a lot of this stuff already, or learn it, and there's a lot of times you just can't learn. You got to do it yourself. anyway, they were
Yeah.
talking about it, and there was a whole classroom full of students. And the guy was pretty good. The professor, he stood up and he goes, "What's the number one thing you need to be in business?" And the one person would say, "Well, you need money." And he said, "No, that's not it." Another person would say, "Well, you need staff." "No, that's not it." "Well, you need a business plan." "No, that's not it." And finally, after about 5 minutes, and I'm shouting, "Customers,
Yeah.
customers." That's your main thing. You can have a great business. If you don't have customers, it's useless. So
True.
he turned around and finally someone said customers, and the guy said, "Yes." And I'm thinking, you students have been in this master's class on business administration, and you haven't figured out that the main thing in the start a business and to have a business is have a customer. And that's what he talks about is need. You got to have a need. Where's your
That's
customers?
good.
And who's going to be your customers? You got to have that need. And
Yeah.
a million times you got to say it over again. Where's your customers coming from? Where's your customers coming from? Who is your customer? What's your who identify your customer.
Yes.
And that's identify the customer, you identify the need.
So CEN and then T, I think, is time. So I think this is again, refreshing my memory here, but it's you don't want to trade your time for money. And is this a business that you can trade someone else's time, or you can is it a product where you can sell it over and over, where you input your time in, obviously it takes time to create it and everything, but at some point, can you sell this and it's not a one-to-one match where you're, $100 an hour or whatever it is? Is this a business that you can scale independent of the time that you're putting into it without a, direct match between your time and the money you're making from it? Is that what time was? I think.
Yeah. Well, what is it? If you're trading time for money, you don't have a business, you have a job.
That's true.
So if you want to have a business, you have to get to the point. I'm not saying at the very beginning, because the very beginning, I'm sure just like you, I put
it's
in
hard.
12-hour days, 18-hour days. I remember one time starting at 4 PM because I was working at Burlington Air Express, and my day ended at 4 PM. And I started at 7 AM, ended at 4 PM. I always brought my dungarees with me and my shirt that had the little logo on it, Nova. And I would go out and do cabling. And sometimes I would cable all night long. And I would go home in time enough to eat breakfast, get a shower, and go back to work. So yes, at the beginning, there's a lot of time invested. But you have to have the model, the business model, that can progress past that time. That, like with me, I hired people like you to go out and do to go out and do the installs. And I would train you guys, or someone at the company would train y'all to go do these things. And then, it's no longer, I'm not trading my time, I'm multiplying it. So I have 5 people out there doing cabling jobs. I couldn't possibly do those cabling jobs that day. So, I was no longer.
So like if you were trading, like you were doing speaking engagements and it was very much your personal brand and you had to go on a stage and you got paid to speak, that would be a violation of this tenet. This is kind of like the commandments of a good business, that's scalable business in this book. So I guess I think that would be an example of like a violating the time principle, because you can't train someone else to tell your story on a stage. I mean, I guess you could, but if you are creating a personal brand, not that you shouldn't do that, but that is kind of, that's something you can't have someone else do. It's not scalable because you're trading your time for money. It might be a lot of money, but I think that would be an example of breaking the time principle on
I think
philosophy
the one exception, here. And you may have brought it up, speaking engagements might be the one principle. If they're paying you $500,000,
right?
Then you take the money and you invest it in real estate. Then you're getting passive income for the rest of your life. So that might be the.
That might break the rules. I don't know.
But
that's a tough one.
And what's the last?
The last one would be scale, I think. So CENTS, scale. is this something, and I guess that goes back to the time one kind of, where is this something that scales, is a repeatable process? So you might have something that it's not a one-to-one trade for your time, but if it's not a repeatable process, like for example, custom IT work where you're doing a custom service, it's different for every customer. They each have special needs. Like they all have their different requirements, and it's not a product where you can, do it the same thing over and over and over, the exact same thing in a cookie cutter kind of way. Then that's breaking the scale tenet. And so, I think another great book on that is there's a book called Built to Sell by John Wareherlo. And that was one that I read as well. And it talks about the agency model. It's the agency model in the book. It talks about a graphic design business, and every customer is different. They each have their different requirements. And so he's having trouble scaling this business. But then as soon as he productized it, he made it where all they do is logo creation. There's a 4-step process. There's this step, this step, this step. And so they made it where he could hand this off and scale it. And, it has a fixed price also. It's always $10,000 for the logo. And so he was able to turn what was a very custom process with different customers, different requirements, turned it into a productized service, and then scale that over and over, following the same process. It's still custom for each person, but it's more productized, so there's levels to it. So I think that was another book that influenced me to starting Hostify, where, we, instead of, I guess, like as an IT service provider, as Lachlan Networks, my previous business, it's like, how am I going to become an expert? All these different things I'm doing: cabling, websites, programming, phone systems, backup solutions. And every time I was doing a job, there's like this huge learning curve, and it was definitely not a productized or repeatable thing. Each customer had a different requirement. And so with Hostify, I took something and it's just this one part of the business, which was the wireless network side, and bundled it up into this support and server maintenance package. And so that was a product that had a very specific requirements, a fixed price, and it had a recurring revenue element, and I could sell that over and over. And as the business grew, I got better and better at that skill set, because we're doing the same thing over and over. So it has other benefits, like being able to hire people was easier, being able to automate stuff was easier. And so once you do that, where you have like a product instead of a custom service, it changes everything, I feel like.
Yeah. Scalability. So you have scalability in your business, and doesn't mean you have to have, you got one coffee shop, you should have 100. Now that's scalability, but you're scaling in a different way, which I think is smarter. It's just nicer. You can go on vacation. Sometimes when you own a company, especially at the beginning, you can't go on vacation.
Yeah. Now that I have employees, when I was just me, it was no vacation, working all day, all night, weekends, everything. It was tough, but now that I have employees, I can trust them to keep everything running while I'm gone.
Well, there's sort of like what would you call it? Phases that a company goes through.
Yeah.
And at the beginning, it's going to be all your time. It's going to be, it's not going to be scalable yet. You have to figure that out. Sometimes you have to change your model, and you have to change your business model. And there's good business models and there's bad business models. And so this book was fantastic. And I'll put a link down below.
Great book, yeah.
His name and the author and everything else. He has a couple of books out. Have you seen any of his other books?
I do. I have his other books. I haven't read them though. The Millionaire Fastlane was the only one that I've read. I know he has Unscripted, and I think another one about something about the rat race. But I think the theme of his books is business models, and encouraging people to try out business, becoming a business owner.
I think sometimes people come into business backwards. They say, "Oh, I'm going to start this business," and I have a friend, a very good friend. He's a nice guy. He's retiring and everything else, and he says, "I'm going to start a coffee shop." And I said, "Come into it from the other direction. Where's your customers? Who's your customers? What are they willing to pay? What is your specialty there that you're going to offer to them that they can't get from Starbucks down the street? It might be atmosphere, maybe." And I said, "So you got to realize that 9 out of 10 businesses fail in the first 5 years. And thinking this through ahead of time, and maybe even going into it slowly to test the waters. With me, I was working at Burlington Air Express, senior communications analyst there, and it was a great job. I had great employees. But what I did is when I was doing IT work, I would keep track of the IT work, and I would try to figure out my income from this work, and it was getting pretty consistent and everything else. And I couldn't see a consistency month to month, so I broke it out every quarter, and then all of a sudden it was going like this.
Nice.
And I could see if I hit this level that I could break even. I could pay my health insurance, I could pay my, all my bills, and I could still feed my kids. And so when I got a little bit past that level that I needed, that's when I put in my resignation with the company. And I remember all the people telling me, "Don't do this. You're crazy."
Yeah.
Crazy thing. Especially my mom. She said, "Yeah, you're giving up a great health insurance, and they have retirement. They have retirement." And I said, "Mom, I'll have my own health insurance, and I'm going to have my own retirement. I don't have to count on anybody else." So
yeah.
This is a hard path, and not everyone should take it. Some people they want their weekends off, and if you're going to run a business, you don't get weekends at the beginning, but later on, you get the week off or the month, and
That's
you
right.
can go anywhere you want and do anything you want later on in life. There's one other book that I always liked. And that affected Nova, by the way, was E-Myth Revisited.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a book that I read as well, that it came right at the right time. I was explaining how frustrated I was that this was my business had gotten to about $100,000 per year in recurring revenue. Now, keep in mind, there's expenses and stuff, so maybe a $60,000 per year salary I could have afforded for myself at that time. But I felt like my business was a failure. I had this moment where I felt like I had worked my butt off and I created this business and it was great, but I didn't have any time off. I didn't have any, I couldn't go out even for a weekend to go on a trip without urgent stuff happening and I was at a campsite connected to my phone, to my laptop, trying to help a customer. And so it was just becoming really stressful. And so I felt kind of like a failure that I'd created a business. The whole idea behind the business was, have more time, more money. Instead, I had less time, less money than I had at my previous job. And so I was kind of venting to a friend about this in a business owners group in a chat room that part of my investors had created a chat room for us. And someone had recommended the E-Myth Revisited. And he said, here's how you could, help yourself out of this situation by hiring somebody. And so up until reading that book, I'd kind of felt like, how could I hire someone who's like me, who knows how to do all this stuff? Because I was doing, Linux servers and providing support and writing code. And so there's all these different parts to the business and doing sales. And I was like, how could I find someone who could do all this stuff? And then if I did find them, how could I afford them? And so I guess what I kind of took away from that book was that I don't need to hire another me. I need to create systems and processes that I could hand off to anyone with the right technical knowledge. They'd be able to follow a system for any kind of support ticket that came in. They would know, here's step-by-step how to do that. So that's that helped me a lot to figure that out. And also writing down like kind of an org chart. So thinking about my business as not just me, but it's me. And I wrote my name on all the different roles in the business. So like I'm the CEO, and also currently I'm the salesperson, I'm the programmer, I'm the support person. But in the future, these are going to be separate roles. Each of these is going to be a separate person doing just this one thing. And so that helped me a lot.
I read this while I was owning Nova, and I remember back in the Marine Corps they had this thing called desktop procedures, which you were supposed to write down everything you need to do your job, and if you're an administrator type or a staff NCO, you would have this book, and so if you were sick or gone, or someone else could open up that book and see all the policies, the procedures, and things like that. And that's what I learned from E-Myth is that you need to have the policies and procedures in place, like you said, that you can hand off to someone else. Well, I already had people doing accounting, dispatching, but I decided I'm going to think it through each position and create this desktop procedure. And we had it. And I remember one time the accounting lady up and left. And it's like, I don't even know the password to get into the accounting system. I don't even know this. Where do I go from here? I don't know anything about QuickBooks at the time. That's something, if you're going to be in business, you got to have an accounting system. And I'd recommend QuickBooks at the time. And so to make a long story short, my wife came in and I handed her the desktop procedure and she said, oh, it's right here. How to deposit checks. See, it's on a tab. But I did not write that. That was something, if I remember right, my daughter, if you remember Christine, she wrote all that. And then before this new person came in, she left and she, she had a family and she took care of that. But every single thing. And then the lady that did leave, she updated it as she went on. So we had policies and procedures and how to do things. So it's not this is our rules and this is how you get it done. And that's what I learned from the E-Myth. But the second thing I learned is something you already hit on was, it's a great book and it's easy to read. It's fun to read.
Yeah.
Story. He does everything through stories. He doesn't give you a list of these 6 things. He actually runs a real life story. And he talks about that lady that owned the pie shop.
Right. Yep.
And she spent all this money on ovens and everything else, and she's getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning and working till 2 in the morning. And she was doing everything herself. And she was at the point of exhaustion and she wanted to get out of it and she couldn't because she had the lease, she had payments on the oven and all this other stuff.
Right.
And his point was, are you starting a business or are you creating yourself a job? And this lady was stuck. But I see that a lot of times when people are starting a business, that they don't think it through from end to beginning. Not just from beginning to end, but go from end to beginning. So what is it
Start
going
with
to
the
look
end in
like?
mind.
And you can always change. You can always change it. But think it through. Is it a good model? Just because you're good in one thing doesn't mean you can turn that into a business. The old thing of he mentions a technician. If you're a great technician, doesn't mean you're going to be a great business owner. So
I think that's a lot of us that start IT businesses as we were great technicians, so we thought we would be great business owners, but then you realize the technician is just one small part of doing the actual job. Is like 20% of the work. You should spend 80% of your time doing sales and marketing and talking to customers, and only 20% doing the actual performance of the work, that whatever it is you do. So it's very different.
Yeah, I had one of the employees came to me one time and he said, my father-in-law says I can do this myself, and why do I need you? So he quit and went into business and failed within 3 months, because it's not, if you have the technician mind frame, you're never going to succeed as a business owner, or you're going to have a rough time until you learn how to be a business owner. And that's what I like about your business. That I could be running a business and I don't have to have an employee handle my Unify. I have you to do it, and I can pay one rate. And yes, this is an unabashed commercial for you. One rate, and someone else is going to take care of it.
To take care of work, so that I do. We have an accounting. You still there, Jim?
Yeah, I'm still here. Go ahead.
Uh-oh. Oh, internet was cutting out for a second there, but hold on a sec. Let's do a check here and do the thing. Hold on. Oh man, why is my internet gotta be bad today? All right, I think we're good.
Now. Go ahead, and we'll close with.
Okay, we're okay now. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay. Trying to continue on here, which that's so annoying.
While you're doing that, recording's going on. Guys, if you're watching this and you like what you hear, I need those likes and I need those subscriptions. So subscribe, not subscription, subscribe to the YouTube account because I'm trying to get to 100,000 subscribers. I think I'm around 54 right now, or 50, somewhere around there. And you just get more credibility with manufacturers, and also I can show some more of the products, things like that. Are you back with me? Nope, I lost them. Well, I'm going to finish up. We'll see about the internet connection. But E-Myth, fantastic book. If you're going to go into business, you need to read that. And the Millionaire Fastlane, if you're thinking about going in business, you need to read that. Are you back? You're back.
I'm back. Yeah, I switched internet connections here. It's having some trouble. Hopefully it's good now. I forgot what I was saying. What were we talking about?
We're talking about the E-Myth Revisited.
Yeah, that was a really good one. What was the last thing we were talking about?
Revisited or revised or no?
Revisited was the one I read. But I think one thing about the book that I felt was a little bit abstract was she was baking pies, and so I felt it was kind of hard for me to apply that to my own business at first, because a pie obviously is very simple. You have the steps, step by step. This is exactly how you make a pie every single time. Now with a technology business, like a Nova Voice and Data Systems or a Hostify, it's not as straightforward. We're not baking pies here. Things are quite complicated. There's a lot of different things that can happen, even in my own business, with just a really small area of things that can happen. And so what I kind of figured out was, what I did is, like, as support tickets came in, I would record myself doing the support ticket, and then watch, later I would, realize that I had done the same thing 10 times. And, I would create kind of like a rudimentary process for it. And so, like, anytime this type of ticket came in, I would hand it off to my new hire along with the guide or video I had created of me fixing a similar ticket in the past. And so over time, the guides that we had got better and better, but I didn't go out and like create the guides. I waited for the request to come in first, then I'd create the guide, and then the guide would get improved over time. And then the best part, like you had mentioned, is when the employees actually take over, create their own guides and improve existing guides. And so eventually we have an internal database of like all these different guides. And when we have a new hire, like you said, as someone new comes on, we're able to train them a lot quicker, because we can just hand them a ticket, hand them a guide that goes with it, and they can follow the step-by-step process to learn about how to solve this particular issue. And anytime a ticket comes in that we don't have a guide for, we'll create a new process. And so now I'll read my own guides and my own processes and follow them, because it's just nice. You don't have to remember everything. You can just go back to the process and refresh your memory on what the steps were for restoring a server or whatever it was, installing a certificate, SSL certificate. So that's kind of how I handled creating the processes and stuff. But
as a business owner, you're constantly improving, and you need to be constantly improving. Reading books. I read about one book a month on business. I know some people read one book a week. I don't have that time to read one book a week.
Yeah.
Used to, but not anymore. So it's one book a month. And so I'm reading all these business books, even the ones that have strange or titles. The Millionaire Fastlane. That sounds so cheesy.
Yeah.
But it's such a great book. It's just a cheesy name. We'll put all those links down below. I'll put your link to your business, because I think it's a fantastic business. You really got me thinking a lot of ideas on how to do things. And I always told my kids when they were younger, now they're all in their 30s, but I told them when they're younger, whatever you want to do in life, there's probably someone who has done it before you, and you need to read their book.
Yeah.
And learn from it.
Yeah, you asked me earlier what piece of advice I would give for people that are new to want to start their own business and stuff. And yeah, that's my number one piece of advice too, is to read a lot of books, and particularly read books about people who you want to be like, or like whether it's a certain type of business or I also listen to a lot of podcasts. So when I was starting a software as a service business, there was one person in particular who wrote about his story building and eventually selling his software as a service business, Tyler Tringus. and he wrote a book called Micro SaaS ebook that really inspired me, reading kind of, his entire journey from beginning to end. And then I also listened to this podcast called the Software as a Service podcast, and got to listen to like over 100 episodes of people telling their story about how they started it, built it, grew it, sold it. And so, the more you can learn about other people who have already done the thing that you want to do, the better.
Yeah, I know you were on Lawrence. Is that the name of the YouTube, Lawrence?
Oh yeah, Tom Lawrence, Lawrence Systems YouTube channel. He's a great. I really am a fan of his channel, and he has his own IT service business in Detroit, Michigan. And I actually went to visit him before in his studio. But yeah, I've been on his channel a couple times.
Yeah, and I don't listen to everything he says, but he has a lot of good ideas. And some of the products I'm not really interested in because that's not what I do. That's not what he does. But when he talks about business, he has a lot of interesting ideas, and I always like to listen to someone else and their approach. And he has a pretty good YouTube. So I'll put that link down there for his YouTube account. And but I don't know the guy personally. Don't know him beyond what I see on YouTube, but he does he has some really good ideas, and he seems to be a really interesting person. Well, what do you say we wrap it up?
Yeah, sounds good. It's been great talking with you, Jim. Thanks for having me on the channel.
Riley, it's always good talking to you, and I always enjoy and I just applaud your success. Thank you for spending this time.
Thanks, Jim.